Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. I was never supposed to hear it. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I had driven across town just to drop off her charger, because she'd forgotten it again and said she couldn't do yoga class without music. It was supposed to be a quick handoff at the front of the studio. But I was early, and the parking lot was quiet, and my wife's voice was echoing from behind the building, followed by a man's low chuckle and her laugh. That laugh, the one she used to save just for me. So I walked around the corner. They didn't see me. She was pressed against his chest, wearing the leggings I bought her for her birthday, telling him I was too safe and too soft, telling him I'd probably write a poem if I ever caught her cheating. She laughed. He laughed harder. And I did nothing. I didn't storm out from the shadows. I didn't shout her name. I didn't demand answers. I just stood there, long enough to feel the part of me that still believed in us finally let go. I turned around, walked straight back to the car, drove home like a sleepwalker, sat in the driveway until the sun went down. Then I made one decision: not to leave her, not to confront her, but to disappear. Not dramatically, not like in the movies. No fake death, no note on the counter. I left my wedding ring in the microwave, tossed my ID into the sink, deleted every online trace of myself I could, burned my journals. Even Brisket, our dog, he went to her sister's house. He wagged his tail and didn't look back. And me? I caught a Greyhound West, paid cash, changed my name at a gas station in Nevada to something I'd forget the next week. And I vanished. She didn't find me for a year. But when she did, she was crying. She was broken. And she had no idea that by the time she found me, I was no longer the man she betrayed. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have a jacket. Just $87 in cash, a dead phone, and a backpack I hadn't touched since college. The Greyhound bus I boarded smelled like sadness and spilt soda. And for the first 2 days, I didn't speak to a single soul. I just stared out the window while America blurred by like someone fast-forwarding through my old life. I got off in a no-name town in the high desert because the bus stopped for gas and the air felt clean. That's it. No deeper meaning. No symbolism. I just liked how empty the place looked. One street, one diner, one gas station, and a little broken sign that said Room 6 available behind a forgotten motel. The guy behind the gas station counter asked my name while ringing up a toothbrush and a pack of jerky. I panicked. My real name caught in my throat. So I said the first thing I saw: Marlon. It was written on the name tag of the guy sweeping the floor. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Cool name." And just like that, I became Marlon. For a full year, I was the guy who washed dishes at the diner in the mornings and swept the floors at the bait shop in the evenings. I rented room 6 for $100 a week, paid in crumpled cash, and slept under a flickering ceiling fan that buzzed like it hated me. Every day was a copy of the last. I spoke less, smiled never. My reflection looked thinner, older, like it didn't recognize me either. But the worst part? I missed her. Not the real her. Not the version laughing in another man's arms. I missed the version I had imagined her to be. The woman who used to sneak notes into my lunch. The one who danced barefoot in our kitchen. The woman who never existed, except in my own hopeful delusion. I didn't check social media. I didn't even own a phone. But sometimes, at 2 a.m., I'd sit on the curb outside room 6 and imagine she was searching for me. That maybe she felt a piece of herself missing. That maybe, just maybe, she regretted it. Then one night, it happened. I was wiping down tables at the diner after closing, still wearing that stupid name tag, Marlon, when I saw headlights through the window. A black car, out of place in our dusty town. It parked. The door opened, and a woman stepped out. She walked toward the window, toward me. Her hair was longer, her face thinner. But the second our eyes met, my legs went numb. It was her. She whispered something I couldn't hear through the glass. And then she held up something to the window. Her hand was shaking. It was my wedding ring. I didn't move. I couldn't. My hands were still wet from wiping down the counter, my breath shallow like my body forgot how to function. She just stood there, on the other side of the glass, clutching the ring I flushed a lifetime ago, her eyes wide, haunted, desperate. I expected rage, blame, maybe even tears. But there was just silence. We stared at each other like strangers caught in a reflection neither of us understood. Then she mouthed something. 3 words I couldn't make out. She knocked on the door softly, like she was afraid I'd disappear again. The sound hit me like a hammer. I stepped back, shaking. I felt like I was looking at a ghost. Not just hers, but mine too. The man I used to be. The one who believed in second chances. The one who loved her more than he loved himself. He was dead, and I had buried him in room 6. She didn't leave. She waited outside that diner for hours. At some point, she sat on the steps, head down, holding her knees. I tried to ignore her. I told myself she didn't deserve to be seen. Not after what she did. But that old familiar ache, weak, loyal, stupid ache, started scratching inside my ribs. By the time my shift ended, I hated myself for even thinking about opening that door. I walked out through the back and slipped around the building, hoping to vanish again. But when I turned the corner, she was there, blocking my path. Her eyes puffy, face raw. She whispered my real name, the one I hadn't heard in nearly a year. Silas, please. I opened my mouth to tell her I didn't exist anymore. That Marlin was all that's left. But nothing came out. She stepped closer, held up the ring again. I've looked everywhere, she said, voice trembling. I checked shelters, hospitals, morgues. I posted online. I called your brother. No one would help me. They thought I'd done something to you. You did, I finally said, and the words shattered her. She dropped the ring. It hit the gravel with a sad, empty ping. I know, she whispered. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to see you, to tell you I was wrong, that I ruined everything, that I hate myself for what I did. I didn't answer. I didn't pick up the ring. I didn't cry. I just walked past her and kept going. But the second I got back to room 6, I threw up in the sink. Because the truth was, I had imagined this moment 1,000 times, and none of them felt like this. I thought I'd scream, or slam the door in her face, or finally feel free. But all I felt was tired, and part of me hated how badly I wanted to believe her. The next morning, she was still there, sitting on the motel's wooden bench, wrapped in a coat too thin for the wind. I watched her through the blinds for 20 minutes before I even got dressed. I thought she'd be gone by now. I hoped she would be. But deep down, I think part of me knew she wouldn't give up that easily, not this time. I opened the door just enough to look at her without stepping outside. Her face lit up when she saw me, like some old part of her remembered how to smile, just for me. I told her she had 10 minutes. She nodded quickly and stood up like she'd been rehearsing for hours. She reached into her purse, pulled out a folded paper and what looked like a crumpled photo. I wrote you a letter, she said, voice shaking, in case you wouldn't talk to me. I didn't take it. I just stared at her. She looked down, then started talking anyway. It was never about him, Silas. Evan, he wasn't some great love story. He wasn't better than you. He was just there when I was angry and bored and tired of waiting for you to notice how distant we'd become. Her voice cracked. But it wasn't your fault. I was the one who gave up and looked for a shortcut to feeling alive again. She finally held out the picture. I didn't want to take it, but I did. It was us. Years ago, at that lake house her cousin owned. I was holding her in the water while she laughed, hair dripping down her face, hands around my neck. Someone must have taken it from the dock. I hadn't seen that moment in so long. I didn't know whether to laugh or rip it in half. I've gone to therapy, she said. I left my job. I sold the apartment. I don't sleep. I haven't dated anyone. I just tried to become someone I wouldn't hate anymore. I looked up. Her eyes were wet, but clear. Not begging, just broken. And that scared me more than if she'd begged. Because in that moment, I realized she was telling the truth. And the worst part? I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that people could change. That maybe the woman I fell in love with still existed beneath the version who stabbed me in the back. I wanted to reach into that photograph and pull us back to a time before lies, before secrets, before I had to become someone else to survive. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, so now what? You want me to come home and pretend none of it happened? No, she said. I just want to know if there's still a version of you that remembers what we were. If there's a version that could maybe come back. I closed the door without answering. But I held on to that photo longer than I should have. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on that lumpy motel bed with the ceiling fan flicking shadows across the wall like ghosts. That photo still clenched in my hand. It was warped now, creased down the middle, but I couldn't throw it away. I stared at it for hours, trying to remember what it felt like to be that man again. The one who made her laugh in the middle of a lake, who believed forever was real, who didn't flinch every time he heard her name. But that guy was gone. He drowned the night I watched her kiss someone else behind that yoga studio. By sunrise, I gave in. I opened the door. She was asleep in her car, curled in the passenger seat, as if she was afraid that if she left, she'd never find me again. I tapped the glass. She jolted awake, eyes red, face pale, and looked at me like I was both a miracle and a punishment. "I'm not coming back," I said, "but you can come in." She followed me to room 6 in silence. I handed her a coffee, burnt and bitter, just like everything between us, and sat across from her at the wobbly table. I told her I wanted the truth. No filters, no apologies, just the raw, unedited version of what happened. And she gave it to me. She told me how the affair started with complaints. Little ones. At work. After happy hour. Evan would say things like, "You deserve more." He'd make fun of how tame I was. How safe. She said at first she defended me. Then she didn't. Then she started laughing. Then she started staying later. Then one night, he leaned in. And she didn't stop him. She swore it wasn't love. She said it felt like a movie scene she didn't know how to walk out of. It gave her adrenaline. Attention. And for a moment, she said, it made her feel like she was someone else, someone wanted. I didn't interrupt. I didn't cry. I just stared through her. Because as much as it hurt to hear, it also explained everything. She told me how after I disappeared, she fell apart. How no one believed she didn't know where I went. The police said I left voluntarily. My brother refused to talk to her. Her parents called her a disgrace. She said she'd check every anonymous Reddit post, every missing person subreddit, every small-town news site, just hoping for some trace of me. "I deserved worse," she whispered. "But I needed you to know I didn't just move on." She reached for my hand. I flinched. She pulled back. "I'm not asking for your love," she said. "I just want your forgiveness. Not for me, but for you. So you can breathe again." I said nothing. My heart was screaming. My mind was silent. She got up, left her number scribbled on a receipt, and said, "You don't have to call. I just wanted you to know I'll never stop being sorry." Then she walked out. And once again, I was alone in room 6. Except this time, the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like indecision. The receipt sat on my table for 3 days. I didn't touch it, didn't even look at it directly. But somehow, I always knew exactly where it was. Right beside the empty coffee cup she left behind, a shallow pool of bitterness staining the rim. I told myself I wouldn't call, that she had said her piece, and I had mine. But you know how silence works? It grows. It spreads. It infects everything until it's louder than words. On the 4th night, I stared at my phone, the burner I swore I only kept for emergencies, and without thinking, I dialed the number. She answered on the first ring. She didn't say hello. She just breathed my name, like it was a secret she wasn't sure she was allowed to say out loud. "I'm not calling to come back," I said flatly. "I need to ask you something." She waited. "Was it just Evan?" My voice cracked on the last syllable. A long pause. Then, "Yes, only him." I don't know if that made it better or worse. 1 minute was a decision. Not a pattern. Not an accident. A single, deliberate betrayal that shattered everything. I sat on the edge of the bed, the fan above creaking like it always did, and asked her what she really wanted. Why find me now a year later? Why not let me vanish for good? She said she had tried to. That for months, she hated me for leaving without a word. Called me a coward in her mind. Told herself she was the one abandoned. But then one morning she saw the mug again. That mug, the best day ever, one she always drank from, and broke down in the kitchen, sobbing over nothing and everything. That's when it hit her. I didn't just disappear. I saved myself from her. She said she couldn't live with that being the last chapter. And here's the twisted part. I understood. I spent so long blaming her for what she did, I never realized how much I blamed myself for not seeing it coming. For being safe. For being boring. For not fighting harder. For not confronting Evan when I had the chance. For becoming a ghost of a man who thought silence was stronger than pain. But I was tired of being a ghost. "Meet me at the lake house," I said suddenly, the words falling out before I could catch them. "Tomorrow. Noon." She gasped. "Silas, are you?" "I'm not promising anything. I just want to see if the past still exists there, or if we buried it too deep." I hung up before she could answer. And then I packed a bag, this time with more than 2 pairs of socks. The next morning, I stared at my reflection in the diner bathroom. I still looked like a man half alive, but something in my eyes felt steadier. I didn't know what I'd say to her, or what I wanted. Closure? Forgiveness? A clean goodbye? but I knew I had to see her one last time, even if it ended in ashes. The gravel crunched beneath my boots in that same uneven way it always had. The trees still leaned slightly to the right from the wind. The dock still creaked in that lazy rhythm like it was sighing with age. Everything at the lake house was exactly how I remembered it, and somehow, that made it harder. Like the universe was daring me to pretend none of it had ever happened. She was already there. I parked behind her car without honking or texting. I just stepped out and stood still for a moment, watching her from across the yard. She was sitting on the porch steps, elbows on her knees, holding that old photo I couldn't bring myself to tear apart. When she noticed me, she stood slowly, like she was afraid any sudden movement might scare me off. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, I broke the silence. "Looks the same, doesn't it?" She nodded. I almost hoped it wouldn't. We walked down to the edge of the dock. That was where it had started for us. Our first kiss. Our engagement. The weekend we both swore we wanted 3 kids and a dog named Brisket. I sat down on the old wooden planks, and she joined me, careful not to sit too close. "I used to replay that day in my head," she said quietly. "The one at the yoga studio. Wondering what would have happened if I'd just told you the truth before you ever saw it." "You would have lied," I replied, not bitter, just honest. She didn't argue. She just looked at the water. "I hated you for a while," she said. "For leaving without a word. For making me feel like I didn't deserve closure. But then, I realized that was exactly what I did to you." I laughed once. A dry, humorless sound. Closure is a luxury. Betrayal doesn't come with instructions. She looked at me then, really looked. "So why did you ask me here?" I hesitated. The words felt heavier than I expected. Because I needed to see if the woman I loved ever existed outside my memory, or if I just made her up. Her face broke. Not in tears. In truth. "She did," she whispered. "But I destroyed her the moment I stopped protecting what we had." I looked back at the trees, the dock, the memories baked into every corner of that place. I wasn't ready to forgive her. I didn't even know if I ever could. But for the first time in over a year, I felt like I had finally stepped out of the wreckage. "I don't know if I can love you again," I said. "But I don't hate you anymore. And maybe that's enough to start with." Her lip trembled. "Do you think we could ever be something new? Not who we were. Just something honest?" I didn't answer right away. I just stood, brushed off my jeans, and offered her a hand. Not a promise. Not a reunion. Just a moment of peace between 2 people who had finally stopped lying to each other and themselves. We stayed at the lake house for hours. Not talking about the affair. Not rehashing the past. Just being still. Breathing in the silence we used to fill with plans and promises. For the first time, it didn't feel like a graveyard. It felt like neutral ground. A place where something had ended, but maybe, just maybe, something else could begin. Later that evening, we sat on the porch with mugs of cheap coffee, watching the sun slip behind the trees. I told her I wasn't coming back to the city. That life was over. But I also told her I didn't regret coming here, or hearing her out. "I'm not asking to be your wife again," she said, voice low. "I just want the chance to earn your friendship. And if, one day, that becomes something more, I'll wait." That hit me harder than anything else she'd said. Not because it promised some romantic fairy tale, but because it didn't. It was honest, gentle, human. We agreed to start writing letters. No pressure, no expectations. Just real, written words between 2 people who had hurt each other, broken each other, and still, somehow, wanted to understand each other. Months passed. Her letters came every week, never asking for more than conversation. I wrote back, slowly at first, then with ease. Her words didn't beg. They didn't manipulate. They simply reflected who she was now, and who she was trying to become. By the end of that year, we met again. Not in desperation, not in pain, but in choice. I still live in a different town. I still work with my hands, under the sun, surrounded by people who call me quiet but reliable. And every so often, I visit her. We walk, talk, share moments without needing to label them. It's not the life we imagined when we first stood on that dock all those years ago. But it's real. And for the first time, that's enough. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever rebuilt something that was shattered, whether it was trust, a relationship, or yourself, share your story in the comments. Or tell us, what moment in history do you think deserved a second chance? We'll see you in the next one.